ChatGPT is amazing when it comes to automating tasks. You can make it very custom and tailored to your situation with very specific output formatting. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you ways that you can do that, how you can automate tasks using ChatGPT's GPT feature. Now, just like always, if you like learning ChatGPT in a more hands-on way, I highly recommend joining my ChatGPT Mastery course and community. I will leave a link in the description or the top pinned comment if that interests you. We have a thriving community and over 55 plus modules on every feature of ChatGPT. That way you can utilize it best for your workflow, personal life, and business life. Now let's get into automating tasks within ChatGPT. This is something that's very, very useful and one of the main pillars of utilizing ChatGPT, especially within the GPT feature. So first, let's take a look at the GPT format. Now, each and every task that you want automated requires a specific format. You don't have to pay attention to the name or the description. Those are just for fun. Those are things you can come up with on your own to make it more custom and to customize your assistant in a way that you want it to be. But where you put this GPT format is within the instructions section of your GPT. I'm going to walk you through this step by step on how to complete this and how to automate any task that you'd like in any field. I mean, this can help construction workers, scientists, CPAs, business owners, pretty much anybody. I've seen this help a lot of people in my private ChatGPT community, even teachers when it comes to grading papers, building curriculums, and so on. So this is what we're going to learn is how do we craft a good GPT format within the instructions section? But you may be asking me, what is a GPT format? What is a good GPT format that you can create in order to automate tasks? Well, I just want to break this down very simply for you. What is a good format? Well, you're going to need a role. You're going to need to put that chatbot in a role within your GPT in the back end of the instructions. You want a desired output. How do you want your information to be output? Usually, every task requires a specific output that you want that task done in. Even if you're doing things like laundry or things that you can't automate with ChatGPT, like doing the dishes, there's a certain output. You know, you put dishes into the sink, you scrub the dishes, you put them on the drying rack, you wash them, you put them away, or maybe you use a dishwasher, or when you do laundry, same thing, washer, dryer, or washer, clothing line. There's a desired output that you want. So you're going to need to understand the desired output of the task you want automated utilizing ChatGPT. And finally, we get into the operating commands. I'm going to show you this step by step for how I'm going to automate a specific task. But these are really the three things that you're going to want in ChatGPT when trying to use the GPT feature in order to automate a task. So let's get into creating a GPT. First, what you want to do is open up your sidebar and click Explore GPTs. And then in the upper right-hand corner behind my face right now, you can't see it, but there's a green button that says Create. And what you need to do is you need to hit that button that says Create, and then you're going to be brought to this new GPT screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip over the Create section and head straight to Configure. And now I have the ability and full control over the instructions of my GPT, the conversation starters, knowledge, name, description, photo. I have control over everything within this Configure section. So now I'm going to get started. I'm going to upload an image, give it a name, let you know what task I'm going to be automating, and then I'm going to get into the instructions and how I'm going to automate that task. So maybe I'm a construction worker and I struggle with writing estimates. You know, I come home after a long day of work and I just want a systemized workflow for all of my estimates. I have my set rates, my set prices. Maybe the only thing I need to update within the GPT every once in a while is the live lumber cost, and I can let ChatGPT decide what that is based on its knowledge cutoff in 2023, or I maybe can have it search the web within my GPT in order to get those live material costs. But I want to create this GPT to automate my quotes and my estimates for my job projects. So that's what I'm going to do. First off, I'm going to give it an image, and then I'm going to give it a name and a description. So I'll be right back when I do all of that fun stuff. So what I did was I utilized Midjourney in order to generate this cool looking construction worker, and now I can give it a name. I'm just going to call it the construction estimator, and now I'll give a description of what this GPT's role is in the task that it's actually automating. So the description I gave it was automates construction worker quotes based on project parameters and client expectations. And now I can hop into the fun part, which is the instructions. Now, before I do that, I want to skip down to conversation starters though. That way we can add some buttons above the prompt bar. So when I'm utilizing this GPT for my specific task that I want automated, all I have to do is click a button in order to get started. And I don't have to type out a prompt or even think about it. I'm trying to make this process as automated as possible. So these conversation starters will allow you to place 4 buttons above the prompt bar in order to get the conversation moving in a profitable direction. And you can decide what direction that conversation gets moving in by adding these conversation starters to the instructions and saying when this button is clicked or when this phrase is said, do this. You kind of can get into conditional logic and actually develop a nice automated workflow. So I'm going to add some of those conversation starters. I just wanted you to understand the importance of having those within your GPTs. That way you don't have to do anything. You just click a button and you get your workflow going. So the two custom buttons that I'm adding above my prompt bar are going to be Start Project Estimate, which is going to run through my task automation process, and also the Give Me Live Material Cost button, which is going to search the web for whatever materials I need and give me the live price, and also give me a link to where I can purchase those. Usually it will be to a store like Menards or Home Depot. That way we can actually change our store location when we're on the website after it gives us the link, add the quantity we actually need and either have it shipped to us or we go pre-order it, pick it up in the lumber yard, whatever we need to do. Now, something very important to keep in mind before we get going is try to think of the workflow that I'm implementing for something so out there that you usually wouldn't use ChatGPT for, like construction, right? Try to think of this workflow and implementing it into tasks that you need automated. I'm not just showing this tutorial for people who want to start making construction estimates with ChatGPT, although it'd be very useful. I'm just trying to show you this very extreme example to how you can really start to think about different ways you can automate tasks in every sector of work in your personal life. So really try to use the things that I'm showing you and implement it into your own workflow, like these conversation starters down here. Think of different conversation starters that you can use for your job, or for your personal life, or for your task that you want automated. Now, with that being said, let's continue, because now we need to get into the instructions for this construction estimator. Now, like I said, for any good instruction, it's very beneficial if you have a role, a desired output, and operating commands. Now, these are not in here by default. I'm just labeling these little sections so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better and which section I'm on when I'm creating these instructions. Now, it may be also a good practice to do this on a whiteboard or a piece of paper. Get down all the things you want, the little details. That way, before you hop into your instructions, you can just actually write it out on paper, see how everything connects, and get all the parameters down for what you want this GPT to do and the tasks that you want automated. So I've just created my role, and what you want to keep in mind when creating your role is you want to give the chatbot a profession or a persona to fit in the shoes of. And you also want to give everything about that persona that you want, from the way it's responding to what it needs to do. You are giving the chatbot, in this case, this GPT, the job right here. So under role, I put, you are a professional construction worker. I want it to understand that that's the shoes that it's filling, a professional construction worker. But it specializes in something. You specialize in creating job estimates and quotes based on my client's wants and needs. So now it knows, okay, I'm a construction worker, but I specialize in creating job estimates. Maybe that's my sole purpose. And then I say, you are to respond in a humorous yet professional tone. And that's just subjective to what you want your GPT to sound like when creating your job estimate or automating your task. You can add a tone, but the main thing you need to do here is give it a role to fit. And then if you want, you can add in the tone, although this isn't necessary. I just like doing it to make my answers stand out and for me to keep coming back to my GPTs and actually using them. And then I tell it, when I give specific details about a job, you are to help me find live prices of listed materials, add up total cost based on my rates, and also help me format a nice estimate for my client. So here you're just giving it its job, its role, and what it's here to do. Now keep in mind, this is a very basic form of a GPT. If you want more specialized commands, instructions, adding API to Zapier in order to link it to your Google Calendar and so on. In my ChatGPT Mastery course, I go in depth on creating a GPT that has a lot more instructions, uses the knowledge section and furthermore, but this is just going to get your foot in the door for actually automating a specific task using these three criteria in order to create a successful GPT with a good format. Now, before I get into actually doing the desired output and the operating commands, what I want to do is I also want to list kind of the step-by-step process that I want this GPT to go through so that it knows the exact steps it needs to take and the order it needs to take those in. And some of these steps can be skipped depending on previous answers within my GPT and what I type in and what I already have versus what I don't have. But it's important that you give this in the role so it knows, okay, I've got to go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got to make sure each step is checked off before I move on to the next step. So I'm going to add in those steps now. So as you can see, I've added a few things here. I've added 4 different protocols that I want my construction estimator to run through within this GPT. Now keep in mind, we're setting this up very good one time so that anytime we have an estimate within the future, we can just come here and have it be a seamless process. It's important that you don't rush this, that you take your time, because task automation requires a good system. And once you have a good system, you can actually scale within your life. And although it may take a little bit of time to implement your systems, once you have your systems in place, your future self will definitely be thanking you. But what I added here was throughout the process, you are going to be going through 4 protocols. And these protocols, I'm going to be labeling within these instructions in order for my GPT to run through them, and so that it knows where everything is based on these protocol labels. Now we're going to be using these protocols throughout desired output and operating commands, but we will be using some of these protocols and calling them at least in the desired output section. So I think it's best if we just get right into it. Here in desired output, I've just finished the job summary protocol. As you can see, I've labeled this section job summary protocol so that it knows, okay, this is step 1. I need to go through the job summary protocol, and this is where a summary of the job is given to me in a specific output format. What is that specific output format within the desired output section? Because remember, we're moving from role to desired output. Well, that specific format is this right here. I say, when I give specific details about a client's wants and needs, first you need to break it down into a more manageable format. You can format it like this. Then I have client name, project ID, and job description. I'm going to get into all of this stuff a little bit more within the operating commands, but I can also just do it here. I want a unique project ID so that I can have an identifier. Maybe I'm storing my projects in a database and I want to be able to separate these jobs from one another with a unique 6 or 7-digit ID. Then I want a better version of the job description. Maybe I just have a bunch of notes about what the client wants and I want it into a more refined job description. And I also want to organize my files by client name. And now that I have this format, and ChatGPT will fill this all out for me when I upload all the client's needs, whether that's with a picture on my notepad or a voice recording, whatever it may be, I say next, after you've given me this format, ask me at the end. I'm telling this GPT to ask me specific questions. I'm asking it to ask me, would you like to go through the material protocol, or do you already have the materials needed? So if you have your materials needed, let's just say, then you don't need to run through step number 2, which is the material protocol. But the material protocol is going to allow the user to get a rough estimate of the materials needed based on the job description. And I have yet to define what the material protocol is, but that's kind of the idea of it. We have different protocols that we can run through based on our needs, based on what the client wants. And then I say, if I respond with go through the material protocol, then do so. If I reply with I already have the material list or something along those lines, then move to the next step, the calculation process. But as you can see, I'm trying to get this GPT to run through these 4 steps based on what I have and what I don't have. So now I need to create some of these protocols within the desired output and the operating commands section. Now I just finished up another protocol within the desired output section. I'm actually going to save the operating commands for the conversation starters that we added earlier in this video and what to do when each of these conversation starters happens. I think that's a good section to have that in. Kind of at the end, I can say something like, if user selects start project estimate or says start project estimate, then do this. If user says any other of the commands I have, then do another specific command. I'm going to save that for the operating commands section, but right now I'm just getting in all of my desired outputs. So I've created a new material protocol, and in this, you can pause this and read this if you want, but what I've done is I've provided another output format for my GPT to use when I say something or when it's actually running through this material protocol. And this material protocol is to help calculate the materials needed based on the job description that was provided in the job summary protocol. So I'm using these protocols in coordination with each other, and I'm using this job summary protocol with the material protocol. And what this is going to do is give me the materials I need to complete the job, and in order to actually write a proper estimate, and it will actually use this material protocol in order to put them in a proper format and also find blind spots and say, hey, you're using this for this job, but have you thought about needing X, Y, or Z? It's going to help me find different things I may need and see different blind spots within my job estimates. That way I can profit a good amount while keeping the client happy. So now I'm going to develop the calculation protocol. All right, and after about another 5 to 10 minutes, what I did was I finished up the calculation protocol. You can pause the screen and read this. I don't want to go through everything, otherwise we would be here a very long time. But basically, what I'm doing is I'm having this GPT run through a process that helps me find everything I need to take into account in order to calculate the final price of this estimate or quote. How many hours are you estimating this job to take? These are questions I'm having to ask me once it gets to this step. How many miles are you driving per day? Are there any special events taking place in this job you may charge extra for? What is your preferred store when shopping materials for jobs? And what I'm going to have this GPT do is take everything into account based on my hourly rate of $45 per hour, based on the IRS standards for driving miles per day and how we can actually write that off, and then any special events that I say that I may charge extra for, and also an upcharge of 15% on materials. And it gets the cost of the materials based on my preferred shopping store. It's actually going to look up those live prices for me so it can get me an accurate, up-to-date quote for construction material because it's changing all the time. Lumber prices are going up, they're going down, everything else is doing the same. Pretty crazy right now, but what I have this doing is finding me that specific information. That way I don't have to look it up every time I'm doing an estimate and spend hours and hours doing it myself. I can have the GPT do it instead. And then I say after each calculation, you can ask me if this estimate looks good or if it needs any revisions. If I say it looks good, move on to the final draft protocol. And if you recall, the final draft protocol is where I combine all the information together into a nice format that I can send the client with a nice cute message. And I just want to sound very personable and just someone who you can agree with. And I'm gonna have the GPT do that for me. And all I have to do is really answer the questions this GPT gives me, start my estimate protocol, and within 3 to 5 minutes, I can probably have a great estimate for my client compared to hours on end. So next I'm going to create the final draft protocol, get this thing wrapped up. Then I'm going to give some operating commands for what happens when these conversation starters are selected. And finally, we can test out the construction estimator and show you the power of it. Now, this is all I'm going to put for the final draft protocol. I don't really want to overcomplicate this, and I kind of want ChatGPT to run through its own thought process and make its own. I want to give it a little bit more free range on this protocol. So I'm saying once all calculations have been made, we can move on to this step where I want you to combine all the information we've gained into a nice format that I can send the client. Make this nice, friendly, and open, and then I can say, ask me if it looks good or if it needs revisions after each final draft is presented. So now I have the option for revisions, or I can say it looks good, and then we can move on to another job estimate. Now I can just list some operating commands. So for the operating commands, what I can do is I can look at my conversation starters. I've got 2 operating commands right now, start project estimate and give me live material costs. So I can give directions and instructions for what to do when those things are said. So I kept the operating command very simple. I said, when the command start project estimate is said, start the process in the job summary protocol, helping me through each step of the process, ask me to give project details in order to get started. And so that will be, once this button is clicked, it will be above the prompt bar here, and it will just hop right into the protocol. So I don't have to think. All I have to do is give this GPT information that I set up in the back end. And then I can get into my next conversation starter, which is the live materials. So I can say when the command, and I can continue in that similar format as I did above. So I said when the command give me live material costs is prompted, ask me for my preferred store and the materials I want checked. Once I give you both, search the web for live prices of the materials I need the price of, give me the price and also a link to the store that I listed. So I'm having ChatGPT and this GPT do all that work for me. Then I say make sure to help me get specific about the product I want checked, as oftentimes in construction, prices vary greatly depending on quantity and quality of specific materials. So this GPT is finally complete. We have all of our protocols. We've given this GPT a role. We've given it the desired output and all of the protocols that it needs to run through. And finally, we've given it the operating commands with the conversation starters, which is going to make this easily accessible and very, very simple to use whenever I need an estimate done. And this whole process probably took me about 30 minutes to an hour in order to come up with on the spot and think of, but this 30 minutes to an hour could have been time that I spent writing an estimate for my construction cost. And now what I can do is I can get these estimates completed within 5 minutes. So spending the time doing something once in a GPT format in order to automate a task is definitely the way to go about it. But now let's get into the fun part. Let's actually get into testing this construction estimator and everything that it has to offer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit create, and then I'm going to say only me for now. Maybe I'll release this to the public in the future. And then I'm going to hit share. And now this is going to publicize my GPT, and then I'll be able to use it, test it out. And this is where you can kind of tinker with it. Maybe you can do the task your own way, see how the GPT does it, and then say, okay, I don't really like how the GPT does it this way. Maybe I can go back in the instructions, upload a couple of examples of how I actually want it done, whether you're doing workout routines, schedules, planning and organizing, you're doing these estimates, data analysis. You can create these task automation GPTs for pretty much anything. But the important part is during this testing phase, maybe you want to get 2 answers. Maybe do the task yourself and do it in ChatGPT, see what you don't like about it, fix it in the instructions section. That's definitely the importance of revisions and why you need this testing and publishing phase. Now we can actually test this construction estimator GPT, and remember, all we have to do is select Start Project Estimate since we set that up within the operating commands and the conversation starters. So I'm going to select that, and then it's as simple as actually just following the instructions of what this construction estimator wants me to do. And already right off the bat, what I'm noticing is it's asking me for all this information, but this is information I want it to format it in. I want it to come up with a unique project ID and a more condensed summary of the job description, and I only want to provide the rough draft. So right away I can go in and edit that. What I've done is I've edited some things around. I can now hit close and then update in the upper right hand corner, and then I can test this GPT once again. I'm going to hit View GPT, and then I'm going to hit Start Project Estimate. And now let's see if it brings up that list or if it just asks me for a rough draft. Great, so what it's doing is actually providing me with a paragraph now where it says just upload the rough draft, and then it will format it in that special format from the job summary protocol. So I can do that now. So what I did was I actually used ChatGPT in order to come up with a fake rough draft notes in a construction worker style. So I have those all here. It just says, so we've got a cool project coming up for Barbara Johnson over on Willow Lane. She's looking to jazz up her backyard with a nice sturdy pergola, 20 by 20 structure, and then I give some specifications about maybe what the client wanted. Maybe I'm taking notes when I'm talking to the client. She wants it 20 feet by 20 feet with a height of about 10 feet. She wants cedar wood. She wants an open lattice, plenty of light, and also a nice color, post certain size, custom swinging garden gate. So we have a timeline in here. We also have some of the things she wants, and this is just basic stuff that you would go through with the client in order to get their needs and what they actually want out of the project. So you can really upload these notes in any format if utilizing something like this. Now keep in mind, do this for other things. It doesn't just have to be for construction estimates. It can be for health and fitness routines. It's just a matter of showing you the structure of how this GPT was actually set up in order to automate a very specific task. And utilize this in your niche, utilize this in your personal life, etc. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm just uploading the rough draft following my GPT's protocols. And then it's going to condense it down into a nicer format for me by utilizing the job summary protocol. And it gave me a unique identifier that I told it to randomize 6 digits so that no 2 project IDs will be the same. If it were the same, that would be highly unlikely, but it could happen, I guess. And now it's actually giving me the job summary. Client name, Barbara Johnson, project ID, job description. And then it asks me at the end, just as I told it to in the back end, would you like me to go through the material protocol to calculate the materials needed, or do you have the material list ready? What I can say is go through the material protocol, because maybe I don't have the material list. I know the structure she wants, I know the dimensions she wants, but I don't really know the exact materials and everything that I'm going to need in order for this job to be successful. So what I could do is I can go through that protocol that I created within my task automation GPT. Now, creating these protocols in your GPT is going to be very useful for task automation because you can run it through systems and processes after running through a different system. So you can have these logical things going on, like go through this protocol if this happens, go through a different protocol if another thing is said or another thing happens. You can go down these multiple routes with GPTs. It's great for task automation. So I can say, go through material protocol, and that's all I have to say. I'm just running through this estimate very quickly. Now, of course, I had to take these good notes, but that just comes to listening to the client if you're in construction. Now it's running me through the list, saying lumber for structure, and it's asking me questions. How many posts are you planning to use for the structure? Additionally, do you have a specific number of beams and cross beams in mind for that lattice roof? And then it's going through concrete, hardware and fasteners, sealant, extras for benches and gate. And it says once it has all of these details, then it can actually sketch out the material list. So all I have to do is answer the question. So what I've done is I've just went through here and I've answered all the questions it asked, but I didn't have to answer them all. If you want ChatGPT to give you ideas, then let it know that it can get creative and it can come up with ideas on its own. So I say I want to use 4 posts, don't have a specific number of beams in mind. I'm setting 4 posts. You can decide the concrete volume based on post setting standards. And then I also tell it you can determine the screws and fastener sizes based on the structure and material. You can decide the sealant need for the size of the structure. No preferred brand or type. Get creative with the benches and the gates, because it's asking me questions about all of these things. And I just want to show you how ChatGPT is very good at actually coming up with things based on what's happened in the past for similar projects like this and what it's been trained on. So I can send off this message and it's basically going to be giving me everything I need on the material list now. And remember, I set this up, took me about an hour, but now it's actually just giving me every single thing that I need based on the format that I told it to put it in. And look at this, it gave me the lumber, the concrete, the hardware, the sealant, the extras. And this is why it's important to maybe do this task automation process and the task yourself a couple of times to see if it's actually matching up and to actually validate the answers that your GPT is giving you for the task that you want automated. And once you do that a couple times, you're going to be able to format this thing into the exact way that you would do it, into your style, into your tone, into your product list, your prices, and so on. So whatever you need, you can do it through the testing phase and just keep editing the GPT in order to automate the task fully. But for now, I can just say, yes, it covers everything I need. And then it will move on to the calculation phase. So it says, fantastic. Now that we have our material list locked in, let's move on to the calculation protocol. And it's asking me these 4 questions I set up in the back end, and I can answer those. So now I've answered all 4 questions. I'm estimating 73 hours. I'm driving 20 miles per day. There's no special events, and my preferred store when shopping is Menards and Home Depot. And now it's going to search the web for those live prices at my preferred store and give me an accurate calculation based on the materials that it gained up here. So I can send that off. And it's doing all this in a matter of seconds. It's amazing. So it's giving me my labor costs, my travel costs, and then it says, hold on a minute while I fetch those prices, but the chat thread stopped. So I can just say, what are the prices of material? And I can send that off and it will look up my stores and find the prices for me. And as you can see, after asking what are the prices of the materials, it gives me 8x8 cedar posts, 12 feet. And it uses my preferred store location that I mentioned above, and it gives me the live price before any rebates. And if I go to Menards' website, the store that I like, as you can see, the exact dimensions it provided and the everyday low price is the exact price it gave me in ChatGPT. So it's pulling in these live lumber costs from a website and a store of my choice. You can think about how that you can use that in other niches as well. It's quite amazing what this can do. And it does the same for all of the other lumber and material needs as well. It gave me a total material cost breakdown, and then it calculated the total cost of materials. So it also gave me the final estimate as well. So I now have everything I need in order to send off this estimate. And the beautiful thing about this is it used my preferred store, used my rough draft, turned it into an actual material list that I can use. Maybe I would go through here, revise the material list a little bit, but think about how you can utilize this in your niche, as I've been saying. And as I've been stressing throughout this video, it's important that you think outside the box. And it might be tough because you're seeing a bunch of construction equipment going on right now, but it's important to think about how you can utilize this, whether you're in SEO, marketing. Police officers have utilized this in my private ChatGPT Mastery community. You can get really custom with this and automate your tasks in ChatGPT. I show more of that in my ChatGPT Mastery community and course. But it says, would you like to proceed with the final draft? And now let's finally run the final draft protocol and say, yes, proceed, and get this full estimate ready in a matter of 1 to 2 minutes. So this entire process probably took me about 5 minutes compared to the hours it would have taken me without, and the calculations and the things that I might run into within the estimate, and not being able to see the blind spots by myself after work, tired, doing construction all day. This would be a great use case. And check this out. It says project estimate for Barbara Johnson, and it gives the product description, and it's a beautiful product description. It says enhance the backyard with a 20 by 20 feet cedar pergola, about 10 feet high with a clear sealant finish. This robust structure will include an open lattice roof for light and decoration, chunky 8 by 8 inch posts, built-in benches, and a custom swinging garden gate. It gives a breakdown of the cost, everything that it calculated previously within this chat thread, travel costs, material costs, being very transparent with the 15% upcharge, and then grand total estimate with a construction timeline. And it gave a little note at the end, which is very nice. Now you could get much more advanced with this by connecting your email and having it send this construction cost email to Barbara. And you could have it go to Google Docs if you want to store your projects within a Google Doc with specific project IDs, you could really go advanced with this, but this is the framework for task automation. Role, desired output, operating commands for those conversation starters, making your GPT have the ease of use in order to get started. Now, this has been everything that you need to know in order to automate tasks within ChatGPT. If you want to go further and you want to understand ChatGPT more, not just task automation, but all the other features that come with it, then I highly, highly recommend you join my ChatGPT Mastery course and community. I will be leaving a link in the top pinned comment and the description below, so be sure to check that out, even if you just take a look at the demo video that I created a while back. With that being said, I also have tons of free content you can learn here on YouTube and enjoy. Please subscribe and like and comment your feedback below if you did enjoy this video. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.